What's going on, Workforce? Brian here.
Chris here.
And today we're talking about the role quest versus job quest. This is a topic that's been brought over on the 14 discussion Reddit. The link will be to the description if you want to go give this a thumbs up, or if you want to engage in the discussion going on there on Reddit. But before we dive into our thoughts and the post itself, Chris, what's going on? Where can people find you? How are you doing? Have you recovered from this theoretical weekend?
In theory, by the time this goes live, I will have recovered from 11 days of working straight, streaming 11 days straight and doing work on the channel outside of that. In theory, I will have taken one vacation day by the time this goes live, called a Sunday. And so that is the theory, but that has not happened as of this recording. We are going to be back to sign clicking on Monday, which is back to our weekly roots here. So hopefully there's a sign to click on, and we'll be doing Housing Savage. And yeah, I'm having a blast. Thanks to you, I'm getting a lot more posted to gaming lately. It's getting posted to more to me, but it's not just me. But Brian's been doing the editing on the back end for me to make sure that stuff gets posted. And so
he actually has videos scheduled. Like this is
I'm starting to watch videos from this Ginger Prime guy. I'm starting to find a little time. So light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, let's go ahead and dive into our topic, guys. Thanks for being here. If you're new, hit the like button, subscribe button, share button, and come back for more of these discussion topics as we dive into these kind of discussions. I think this is a really good one. Role quest versus job quest. To set a little context before we dive into the actual verbiage of the post itself. Over the course of the game, we've had job quests. They start off as class quest, went into job quest. With Shadowbringers, they migrated that to a role quest system. So if you're a caster, a tank, so instead of having specific, and then they kind of finished it off with a little tip of the hat after you kind of finish all of those on the jobs themselves at 80. So that's where the history of this is. So if you're new, that's what we're talking about. What's the general opinion of job quests versus role quests, especially with Endwalker not bringing back job quests and the level 80 job quest feeling like epilogues? It doesn't seem like they're going to be doing a level 91, but I was curious about the general consensus of this.
They actually said it.
That's right. That's
role quest again.
That's why the topic came up. So,
right.
What do you think? Is this a good thing, a bad thing? What are your thoughts, Chris?
So, I understand why people want job quests. Mm-hmm. I understand why people want a quest that elaborates on their job. But let's think through this from what they do from a game development standpoint, not a narrative standpoint. Because from a narrative standpoint, you have this much story to tell, and it doesn't matter how you tell it. So this expansion, we moved to telling story through, Bozja told an immense amount of story compared to past Relic grinds. There was a lot of story tied to Bozja, and the reason for that, in my opinion, is that we had a gap in Final Fantasy XIV lore in Shadowbringers by giving over the Alliance raid to Nier. And so we had to put that much writing somewhere else in the game. Next expansion, we're going back to having a Final Fantasy XIV Alliance raid system, which means the Relic, if it wanted to, could be more game system focused. So when you have a story you want to tell, there's not only one way to tell it. You can tell it through daily quests. You can tell it through class quests. You can tell it through the amount of MSQ. You can tell it through side stories such as Sorrows of Werlet, or like the upcoming Alliance Raid series as we go into Myths of the Realm. So I would think about it from a mechanics system. Okay. What does a class quest do? As of now, it unlocks your abilities and it teaches you how to play your class. But as we go back and we prune abilities, as we go back and we add abilities and we change the definitions of what a class is, every expansion, a couple of jobs drastically change. That doesn't really give the new player the education they need. Meanwhile, as you add more jobs to the game, currently I don't see anybody mainstream advocating for them to stop adding new jobs altogether.
Stop it. They do exist. But
there's some people concerned with it, but there's nobody saying, I will quit this game if they add more jobs. And as a result, there's more people that want jobs than not. And as we add more jobs, now instead of you working on 17 new job quests, you got to work on 19, 20, 35, and it just grows out of hand. And so they're immensely expensive compared to role quests. Role quests this expansion have had a chance to tell much deeper stories, to the point where actually on the Aetheryte Radio podcast, the podcast for Gamer Escape, our kind of wiki, I actually listened to them talk about why that was a problem. How there was lore that was so important that was locked behind a role you might not play. Yeah. That E10 might be a fight you don't appreciate if you have not cleared the right role quests. And so they actually complained it's too deep. I don't know that that's It wasn't in this context where they were comparing it to class quests versus role quests, but there is something there where like it's allowed it to become an incredibly powerful thing. What I would ask for is what role quests have done is they've picked up the narrative torch from class quests and they've at least done something with it. Not the same thing, but they've done something with it. What they have not done is I think we should have normal and savage role quests that teach you how to play your job in a 4-man group at a base level in a trust style scenario while telling you a story. And then we should have a savage version that can start to prepare you for things that are savage and extreme. Tanks need to learn to tank swap. Healers need to be put under a lot of pressure, maybe be able to put DPS out. DPS need to be able to use whatever their utility is. Dancers, are you using your dance partner? Do you know how to use your limit break? These things that when we take a brand new player who maybe comes from a storied franchise and comes in and says, I just want to play the MSQ, and then they're getting into group content and they have no MMO background, the skill gap between casual dungeons, which at this point are just handed completion to you, and extreme, your very first extreme, your very first savage, your very first foray into a minimum item level or whatever you find in Party Finder is huge. It can't just be, well, I went to Stone Sky Sierra and I punched a dummy that didn't punch me back and I'm ready.
Yeah.
No, you're not. Like I have watched people struggle with brambles and I am going into it this weekend after this recording, before this goes live. And I don't know if I can do brambles because in normal content, I've never been asked to do it at that level. That's what I would love to see from role quests. And that would be the advantage to giving up. Let's make it where like we've gotten so much from role quests that I don't want to go back to class quests.
Yeah. Now, guys, if you all actually, just because you shouted them out, if you guys haven't heard of Aether Radio, I'll try to include a link to their YouTube, but you can also go to gamerscape.com. Awesome group of people, awesome gamers. I love them all to death. And if you haven't checked them out and we can introduce you to them, it's a really good podcast.
Brian used to have a chair on that said podcast.
Yeah,
he gave it up for the illustrious rook of Bird of Chess.
That, and also Saturdays became difficult with having so many kids. I was like, if we could do this during the week, I'd still podcast with you guys. But on the Saturday,
I can't believe those other guys don't have 5 children to sympathize with you.
I know, right? All right, I want to highlight a couple comments here that are actually, I think, really kind of reflected. Megalodon, nerdy fanboy, talking about this. It's kind of a bummer for me because I was excited that we were going to Charlan and we could actually learn more about the astrologian lore. Astrologian, I don't know, and about Leva. I honestly like the job quest more than the role quest, but I can see why it's a lot better for the devs workflow to just use the role quest. And just on a note of that, Yoshi P and them have talked about the difficulty of like making the job quest significant, because there was a point where every job quest gave you a skill, gave you an ability, and then they're trying to like pace out the story of that in which way that you got some ability. It doesn't even tie into the relationship with it. And it's like, so at the end of the day, like you saw them move eventually to where you kind of got your ability at 80 and then, 70. And then in the 80s, it just kind of went to roll and wasn't connected to your build. And Nerdy Fanboy follows up, I agree, especially with Dancer and Thavnir. So I think they're hopefully, and even, they follow it up, hopefully that we'll actually see and get that story, especially as it relates to the jobs and the lore in which they come from, the areas they come from, in some other form or fashion. And that would be the trade-off. Maybe this will allow them to pace that in a way that it isn't tied to your specific job, but overall maybe there's going to be, something along the lines for players for those jobs in those areas. What do you think?
You could definitely come at it in other ways. I think,
Okay.
Blue Mage taught us that a job can have its own side content that is not tied to a level and will age.
Yeah.
Masked Carnival will still be relevant next expansion, which is really intriguing. So if you wanted to have a place that you were telling story, we wouldn't have to tie it to job quests that were tied to a level or to a particular rotation. If the goal is to tell narrative, I mean, think of all the narrative that we learned from Ishgard Restoration. Think of, we can learn narrative from anything. And so if you want the class quest to be really interesting, it would be neat to see them, as we've talked about demi-glamours recently. I would love to see them move towards, okay, well, let's go create a mini beast tribe or something like that for a job. Let's go create a mini set of challenges for a job. Let's go create a demi summon master for summoner and give them a place that they can regularly check in with, where Dark Knight can go back and have those moments with Frey, but not to unlock an ability, to maybe unlock a different set, a different artifact set, or to unlock a cosmetic for the job. Or maybe that's what finally builds towards each job having its own unique mount. They've said that they don't want to add healer mounts because the tank mounts are already them having to spend time on that. And if they add healer mounts, the moment I saw somebody in chat mention that, they actually got to, somebody said, I want healer mounts. And the very next comment response, the last time that I brought this up on a video, was the reason Yoshi P said no. If I add healer mounts, people will ask for DPS mounts. And the next comment, the response comment was, yeah, and then we could have DPS mounts. And I was like, that's why. Because the moment he gives healer mounts, so what I would love to see them move to, from that perspective, to get off in another tangent off a tangent, I would love to see them have an adventure and need mount, which you could get as DPS for alliance raids.
Yeah,
so that way you're just number of times. Yeah, you fill the void, and we'll give you mounts.
That's actually a genius
but
idea.
For the job quest, to get back on subject, I think there are ways to tell us things about jobs. I think we're going into a city that is the origin point of the dancer. You can have a side quest line in that zone that is not required to unlock dancer abilities, but tells us about the history of the dancer. And if it's normal quests or a beast tribe that's dancer centered, that could actually do that, and you wouldn't have to play dancer if you wanted access to that lore. Maybe you don't like the mechanics of dancer, but you do like what dancers mean in the lore. And so then you could go take part in that and get to know that. And that would be a really neat way to expand on the world that doesn't put us in like, oh, and this teaches you to use this ability that got pruned eventually.
Yeah, and the point of also ability pruning, while I laugh, and at some point, like I want them not to, I want them to update the UI in other ways. I that's what I hope for, but it's true. Like, oh, that ability got moved to this spot. Like, oh, how do we adjust that in terms of the story? Like, it ends up, I think they found out it's seeming to be more restrictive as the game gets expansions and moves forward. The role quests themselves, I honestly enjoyed. I play all the roles, so in the point of what they were saying on Aether Ray Radio, I got all of it. I got the whole story. I played everything. I did all the roles, and I appreciated that for that aspect. I appreciated that for then putting a mount behind leveling everything to 80. Like, that was like a big thank you. I mean, you think about it, like for me, it was only doing 10 levels plus 20 levels for the new jobs. The same thing. 10 levels plus 20 levels for the new jobs. Like, it's not as big of an ask as somebody who's coming and starting the game today, but it's still nonetheless significant. It still says, yes, I was right to spend more time leveling than in Eureka, in that regards. But that's just my personal take on it. I like the role quest. I really liked how they told it and had to tell a story. I'm curious to see how they use that going forward, especially as it relates to it. And but I think and hope that maybe we can see more job specific stuff brought in. Now, this is a bigger ask than they have time to, and like, I don't have any anticipation for it. But like when we praise the Blue Carnival, it'd be really cool to see something brought in that's job specific. Whether that's, like you said, with a job quest line that is more about telling a story, and then maybe unlocking a unique cosmetic terms of your skills. I think that's one of the things that you've wished for in this game a long time. Like, what if you did 1,000 or 10,000 dungeons, and now that spell has it's a different color? How did you get, your spell to be a different color?
Why can't my fell cleave be green?
Right.
Why can't my Namatsu, or why can't my blue mage throw a Namatsu instead of a fish? Like, why can't, like, what's the problem? And like, if you need it to not render on other people's machines because you want people to be able to recognize things, especially in things like PvP, I get that. I do. If you turn your graphic settings all the way down in Guild Wars, it actually puts everybody in the same armor. It eventually just drops the skins altogether. Nobody looks unique. And because I had to do that during Super Adventure Box because there were so many people in a zone that it was like killing my CPU on my brand new computer. So I just, on my screen, why can't I have cosmetics? And so, like, that would be a neat way to bring the job quests back. And if you wanted to, you could highlight them one at a time. Maybe this expansion, we get job quests for the 2 jobs that get the heaviest rework. And so if they kind of finish up their thoughts with Monk, and then they finish up their thoughts with Summoner, maybe there's job quests for Summoner and Monk. And the next expansion, we get 2 new jobs added, and then 2 of the jobs get job quests. But I don't think we need to go back to dropping role quests and go back to job quests across the board. I think that where we are is a great step forward, and now we need to look at, okay, what did we leave behind? And instead of going back to that, where it also had weaknesses, can we go back and just grab some of the things we miss and bolt those on?
Yeah.
Can we close up the gaps instead of undoing things?
I guess we'll wait and see. And then, guys, as always, these are just great discussions. Let us know what you guys think, what you're hoping for in the comments below. Or you don't have to do that today. You could go weigh in on the Reddit thread over on the Reddit discussion. And always remember, as we engage with each other on social media, be as respectful and loving as possible. And chances are you're probably not going to change somebody's mind who disagrees with you in the form of text. Maybe give them a call if you have a Discord or share with them in that regards. Chris, you got any final thoughts before we wrap up this post for Monday?
No, I referenced tank mounts real quick. And so just as a closing thought, I know somebody in chat asked, they're not familiar with 14, but there's also a lot of new players in 14. So what tank mounts are is we did not have enough people tanking in game. So in addition to maybe getting extra materia for running a run, if you're running high-end duties, you also get credit towards an achievement. And when that achievement fills up enough, I want to say it's like 1,000 runs or something. It's a lot. You get a mount unique to doing it on that tank. And that encourages tanks to say, okay, I've got my warrior mount. Now I'm going to go tank another 1,000 runs on Dark Knight to get my Dark Knight mount and just continue to work through them that way. Warrior's a bear, and Paladin, I think, is like a lion or something. I don't know. They're all different.
Lion,
so
tiger, bear, panther, something of that nature. Yeah.
So there's one for each of the four. And so for any of you new players that are like, I don't know about tanking, maybe that's the thing to kind of invite you over. Because once again, next expansion, we have a lot of people that want to be a healer. No, don't think you're like, I'm probably the only person that wants to be a sage and a reaper. You are not. And so if you've ever wanted to try tanking and you're willing to push sage and reaper off to maybe 6.1, it would be a great time to be a tank in the community, because there's probably not going to be that many of us compared to typical patch cycles.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, for Work to Game, my name's Brian.
My name's Chris.
Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you have an incredible day, and hopefully we'll see you in our next video. But until then,
take care.